Rick Antonson and Peter Armstrong are with me. They are two Vancouver businessmen boomers who tested their friendship and their sanity on America's dream road, Route 66. They learned firsthand road trips are like marriages, as you said, mostly about compromise. Now, back to the question. How are the folks in America different than Canadian folk?
I don't think they're that different. They're passionate about their country. They're passionate about the things that they're interested in. We had some wonderful experiences. One day, Rick decided to break into a bookstore. I had to protect him from the caretaker who came up the road with a gun. And we had a lovely chat with this fellow about healthcare in the United States and around his campfire. We went to...
Really? So you saved his life?
Yes. I actually do not approve of him breaking and entering. I want to be clear on that. I told him that.
But you found a bookstore in the middle of nowhere, didn't you?
He can smell them.
I like bookstores.
Well, you were in the book business.
I was for a long time with Douglas and McIntyre, and I love that sort of end of things. And we did find this, again, on an old alignment of Route 66, because the Route 66 Rudy moved along and would be somewhere for 7 years and then move. And many of the places we were able to go, you could drive for 2 hours without seeing another vehicle. Right. Or you could drive for a great distance on old two-lane pavement. And in one of them we found this. It hadn't been a bookstore for a long time. It used to be a service station along one of the gasoline alleys. And it was quite a bad place. And Peter he bonded really quickly with people, and for reasons that escape me, but he did. It just sort of happened. And this guy did have a rifle, and he did come out, and he did get me out of an awkward situation. I was just trying to get in the front door, which was locked. Of course
you were.
And the back door was locked too.
A retort, sir?
Well, I just want to see, Canadians and Americans are the same. We don't like people breaking and entering. They just take it a little farther.
In America, you get shot. In America, you get shot.
That's why it was good to be traveling with him. He did save me from.
Will Rogers would have loved you.
Yes, he would have.
Yes.
At least one of us. He would have loved one of us.
One of the things we haven't talked about is the road and the condition of the road. And you mentioned earlier about it, bypassing and so on and so forth. And I don't know if, Rick, did you bring any photos with?
Yes, we have some of the old road because now it's segmented. And as Peter talked about, there are lots of dead ends, but there are places you will find where you just can't drive on this. And so we would get up and over a berm. We would, again, Peter's ambition, and he can get a little fixated on things, was we'll find all the old parts. So we actually drove all the old parts of Route 66. And we were promised. And they're just loaded with history. But sometimes you have to really work. Sometimes you have to walk them because they're overgrown with weeds and trees.
Sure.
And we would still try to drive those if we could get on them.
And your car wasn't brand new?
It was a rental car, which was brand new.
It was brand new?
Yeah. It was the 45th anniversary. Mustang was a beautiful car. Peter nicknamed it Shadow, which seemed a bit odd at the time. And then he said, I've never actually named an inanimate object. I said, don't worry about it. NASA does it all the time. So he began off and talking to the car instead of me.
Okay, and gas stations, was there a Phillips 66?
Yes. And Phillips 66 wasn't named after the highway. It actually was when the company was new, and Oklahoma was the center of a lot of gas development. They had two guys driving along, and somebody says, this new gas is we're going like 60, and the guy driving says, no, we're doing 66. And so they named it Phillips 66 around the time Route 66 was becoming famous.
Did you go through Illinois, Springfield, Mickey Mantle town? Where is he from?
Commerce, Oklahoma, Mickey Mantle, yes. And he had played baseball in Baxter. The Commerce Comet. Yes, and actually there's I think an interesting story in the book about when Mickey Mantle got called up to the Yankees. He's 19 years old, and then this first season he's not doing that well. He gets sent back to the minors, calls his dad in Commerce one day and says, Dad, it's over. I can't hit, can't play. His dad hops in the family car onto Route 66, drives to see Mickey, and says, he starts packing up his socks and his jerseys and everything. He says, I'm taking you home, you can go to work in the mines. And Mickey stops, and he remembers being in Baxter Springs where we had stayed. Right. And he remembers being a kid and a great hitter. And he says, Dad, give me another chance. Okay. I'll do my best.
I'll do my best.
And he did. He replaced Joe DiMaggio the next year and went on to the All-Star games.
All he didn't do was marry Marilyn Monroe, but he
Joe DiMaggio did.
I know. He was a great ball player.
He was.
Now, you're writing Al Capone postcards, I hear tell. You're driving or reading a map or doing something.
Every day.
You're Mr. Postcard.
Yeah, notes from the front line of travel, I guess.
I like sending the postcards back to my family and let them know where I am.
I'm alive.
Yes, especially on this trip. And so that was a lot of fun. It's interesting how maps are very important on a trip like this, and I always thought you'd use them to look up stuff. Rick likes to have them as a footrest when he's navigating.
Well, one side of the car sometimes we get a little cluttered because we didn't, when we started out, we had ordered up some maps and ordered up some guidebooks. Neither of us actually had read them because this happened kind of from Peter's idea, let's drive Route 66 to us leaving was just like a matter of months and we were both really busy.
Right.
So we're kind of sorting out and they often had contradictory information. So I kept all of the maps open. And then when Peter would get to that side of the car when I was driving, he'd just tidy it all up and put them away. And it was a little,
It was, well, obviously he's the tidy one and you're the not so tidy one. That's clear. And you can haggle a room. You can get a good room rate.
See, I'm not, I have to.
In spite of the fact it's only
myself.
like $60 a night.
I work for myself, and so every dollar is important. And so we would arrive at these hotels, and I would try to negotiate a good rate for the two of us. And Rick would get frustrated because he thought anything under a couple $100 was a good deal, and we were in the 30s and $40. But I thought get another $10 off would be even better. But every once in a while, he'd just accept whatever the person would, so it made it in the negotiations very tough.
Right, and so he's hiding in the car.
I would
I can't
often
believe you're haggling with this woman over $10, like
or $2.
$2.
It was the hunt, not the catch.
I see.
And every night except for the last night, he made those negotiations, and he's dealing with people who are used to standing pretty firm. And at one point the guy says, no, it's $58, and Peter says, well, that's more than we paid last night. And the guy running the motel says, well, you didn't stay here last night.
Ba-boom. Philly steaks, Pabst Blue Ribbon along the way?
Great beer along the way, great food, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
What about the floating things? America is often full of strange sights, big whales or how about the Cadillac? There's that one.
Cadillac
Ranch.
Did you see Cadillac Ranch with the Cadillacs dumped into the?
We also went by the original mascots for A&W.
Really?
Yes.
Something's really, really excited Peter on the trip. So
I have
Cadillac
never
Ranch.
seen them.
No, well.
Not the Great Root Beer.
I
Not
tell you where they are.
da-dum.
No, that was kind of a later
Long
thing. That
time
came out
ago.
of Canada, actually. That
I
was
know.
A local advertising thing that just became famous. But
It was Woodall who wrote it.
That's right.
Wasn't
right.
it?
Ron Woodall.
See what we know.
There you
Yeah.
go. Right. Who
But
else
back
would
to
have
the-
used that trivia? But that's great.
I know. But let's
wonderful.
go back to the original mascots.
Well-
A&W? The mama and the papa? Who?
Yeah,
Well,
the
Rick got us
family.
there because he was so keen on seeing these, and I've got a picture of him there with them. We didn't bring that today.
These were some of the days were longer than others.
What's so amazing about this route is from the past. You have to understand, the iconic photographs of back in the 30s, the Dust Bowl, and the impact this had, and the whole life of this road. It was the people moving east and west, and fascinating.
And the history is so. It's
rich,
harsh,
isn't it?
But it's rich.
And then in the 50s and 60s, the highway moved. It's like the book, Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
And some of these people never moved. They just stayed. A lot of people moved on. And we got to visit with some of these people. One fellow ran a gas station as a hobby, and it was a Sinclair gas station. And he's decked it out, and he spends hours with you telling you all the things he wants you to see if you're going east or you're going west. Fascinating guy.
How great. How great. And there was the one waitress who said she'd like to trade her husband in for a Chevy truck.
Yeah, she was great, wasn't she?
She must have been great.
And when Peter talks about the history, that was something that we were kind of in search of, some of it accidentally and some of it intentionally. But John Steinbeck wrote the book,
Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes of Wrath, and in it he called it the Mother Road because he talked about the migrants. And you're right, the dust storms, the dirty 30s, the Depression, and they all tried to head to California. And it was hardship like we just don't see.
No kidding. And the Al Capone stories. I mean, apparently one of you said, there's some bricks in Vancouver from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Used to be, they're now in California, in Vegas, right, they're now in Vegas. But the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, the bricks on the wall, were brought here by Vancouver. I can remember seeing them in the early 70s at the Banjo Palace, which was on Alexander Street
Right.
in Gastown area. And then they were in the owner's basement for a long time. They're now part of the Mob Museum in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a favorite place for either of you? The Cadillac, what's it called? The Cadillac
Ranch?
Ranch,
Cadillac
and they
Ranch.
have real Cadillacs stuck in the ground with the fins sticking up.
Correct.
They do.
That would be my fave,
And
I
it's,
think. Or maybe Abe Lincoln.
For me, it would be some of the open road when we're in New Mexico and in Arizona. Just the miles and miles and miles of open
The
road.
freedom.
Yeah.
The freedom. Oh, and don't forget Route 66, the show. I mean, we dined on that.
Yes.
Right, for 4 years in the early 60s.
60s.
Early 60s.
You probably
Yeah.
weren't born.
You're right. I mean, it was George Maharis.
Marty Milner in the Corvette.
Yeah.
Exactly. They had the Corvette. It's interesting with that. When you look at the vignettes, the show always began with them on the road. So there's quite a bit written about that as part toward the end of the book. Here's something really interesting is that of the 120 episodes, only 2 of them were actually shot on Route 66.
No kidding.
All the
And
rest,
also
yes.
that Corvette was not red because it was in black and
Never red.
white.
Never
We
red.
always thought it was a red Corvette, and it probably wasn't.
It was,
Maybe
no,
gray.
probably. It was not.
Maybe
It was
gray.
yeah.
Well, this is great. Great reviews. Did you do any of the writing?
Regrettably,
Regrettably not. He just hauls you along?
exactly.
You know, he was really good. He read the early manuscript, and while he talked about getting a fleet of lawyers to sue me because of how he's portrayed, he backed off on that. All he asked me to make sure I did is in the acknowledgments was to say, 2 buddies got to go on this trip, and only one of them wrote the book.
Okay, and I thank you both today.
Thank you.
Route 66 still kicks, driving America's main street. And thanks for being with us today. Remember, you can join me on Twitter at Fanny Kiefer or listen to our conversations on YouTube. The next time, till next time, go with the flow or flow with the go. See you soon.